Dad was commissioned to make an advert in the late 1980s, or maybe around 1990, for Alphabet's breakfast cereal.
Oh, never heard of them.
Yeah, I think they've disappeared now, but they were, coloured marshmallow flavoured letters, essentially.
Okay.
And he wanted to do something where children would be interacting with large-scale pieces of Alphabet cereal. So he had a letter, maybe an O and maybe an A created.
Right.
I'm sure Richard Gregory would have built them. And he created test footage in our garden with me as the child who stood up against the letters.
Okay.
And somewhere I've got a VHS tape with that Alphabet's letter test. I will try and dig it out and we'll do something with it.
Find it.
Because later on he was filming double-sized bits of the cereal on a desk to try and see how they'd match up and do a match shot. And I was in his office with him, and Mum knocked on the door to offer him a cup of tea, and a very precocious Jamie Anderson, so a little bit like a Joe 90 of the day, in fact. You can hear him on the video going, "We're busy, Mum, but you can come and look if you like."
Oh, I know that voice. I know that tone.
What a little oik. Anyway, there you go. There's one little letter thing.
Right.
But I'm going to give you a second Gerry Anderson letter FAB fact.
Okay.
I literally, in my hand, have a letter from Gerry Anderson to a production company based in Israel. Now, this relates to something called Operation Shockwave, which is a cancelled, lost Anderson project from the early 1980s. You can hear Mum talk about it in the Mummy A podcast series. When would that have been? In the 50s, maybe? 60s?
Yeah, maybe.
I can't remember. But just search for hashtag Mummy A or Mary Anderson in the podcast archive and you can have a listen there. But it was a political thriller movie, and it was all funded and ready to go. They went out to Israel, and then it all fell apart. Anyway, as with many of these things, that often happens. Things get delayed, and they have to find another life. And this is a letter to the production company in Israel, and it reads as follows. It seems like an eternity since Operation Shockwave exploded in our faces. At the time, I was very keen to make a theatrical, and it seemed to suit us both that it should be made in Israel. I cannot tell you how distressed I was when it all went wrong. Really interesting there. You can just straight away read the pain associated with productions like this.
Absolutely.
So, however, recent events on TWA 847 have prompted me to write to you again on this subject. Now, was that an airline disaster at the time?
TWA? Yeah.
I guess it was. We need to look up that.
Yes.
Since we've not been in contact for so long, I'd like you to briefly bring you up to date with my affairs. As you already know, Mary and I were married some 4 years ago. There's a double asterisk there. We'll come back to that. And since then, I'm pleased to tell you that things have been going very well for us. I found a new business partner, Christopher Burr, who bizarrely I spoke to a few hours ago. Lovely chap. And we formed Anderson Burr Pictures. Our first production was for London Weekend Television, 39 half-hour episodes of a science fiction series entitled Terrorhawks.
Oh yes, know it well.
This was made using our new system called Super Macromation, although it's misspelt here, interestingly enough, and has been sold to most of the major markets around the world. Returning to Operation Shockwave, some time ago, Benny Ronan contacted me and asked if I wanted to sell the property. He declined to tell me who he was representing, so I gave him a very high price and have heard nothing since. That's always a good way to put people off, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Now that I'm working with Christopher Burr, we are considering entering into co-production deals, and I write to see if there are any opportunities for us to work together. Operation Shockwave seems to be an ideal subject for such a venture. It's not too expensive, ideal for America, and could be made for cinema, or television, or both.
Oh.
If you're to be interested, then we will be able to make a clean start and work without the constraints we had last time. Look forward to meeting you soon. Warmest regards from us both, Gerry. Now, the double asterisk is repeated here. We now have a son, aged 16 weeks, James Lionel Anderson.
Oh, little Jamie. There you are.
It's sort of lovely because I've got this original letter. Yes, obviously it's the file copy that they printed off one for their own records.
Yes.
But to know that this was written by Dad and in his hands when I was 16 weeks old, and I've got it here, is rather lovely. But perhaps of more interest to Gerry Anderson fans is the fact that Operation Shockwave, although it was cancelled as a film, it almost then went on to become a television series, and I've got further information about that, which I'm sure we'll share in due course.
Oh, interesting.
But I think the thing to notice from that is that sometimes these projects take a very, very long time to come to fruition. Sometimes they get, put in the filing cabinet for later use.
Yeah.
So they're never really gone. There's always potential, isn't there, Richard? And we're talking about some other things where there's potential. So
yes, that's true.
let's talk about those next year. But there you go.
Right.
That's a rather prolonged and random Fab Facts thing, but we've got other things to do. So shall we move on?